Hi, my name is Kayla. Okay, so my story is senior year in high school, I was kind of having a rough time and I was just a mess. And this one night, I actually ironically was at a party and somebody approached me and said, "Hi, I think that your car is going to be towed." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I went and checked and my car was on the tow. The next day, this guy and I connected, and he had told me his story. We started to become friends, and he went to ministry school, and he ended up playing a huge role in my life. And we dated for a year, and God placed him in my life and me in his life to bring each other towards God. You know, for us dating for a year, I've never seen somebody grow so much in my life. And during that time, for me, I was like, just fell in love with who God was, because he demonstrated that love for me. Like, God used him as a vessel in my life, and he just demonstrated that love, and I just fell in love with it, and I wanted it, but I didn't know how. And so as a relationship piece, it wasn't meant to be. He was only meant to be in my life, to teach me that. That was it. And then we ended up breaking things off, and I kind of went out and did my own thing. And then after I did my own thing, in November, while I was really lost because I wanted God and I knew it, and I had been praying to find a church or find a group of people or anyone just to bring me towards God and to kind of set me in the right direction and on the right path. And so in November, I was at a concert at the State Theater, a Taking Back Sunday concert, ironically, and I'm sitting in the crowd, miserable, did not want to be there, just like so lost. I just was so miserable. I just remember thinking, like, what am I doing here? Why am I even here? And then all of a sudden, a group of friends came up to me and started to mingle, and I was not having it. And then one of the friends came back a few minutes later, and he was like, "Hey, my friend lost his phone," and blah blah blah, some stupid pickup line kind of thing.
Hello, Eastpoint Church. My name is Stephen Brennick. One night I went to a concert, and I was gonna do everything I could to get back the 3 years of girls that I gave up for God, and I actually went to try to pick my current girlfriend up, with bad motives and a bad heart towards it. And I went up to her and started talking to her and kind of smooching my way in, and she looked at me for no apparent reason 20 seconds into meeting her and asked me if I was a Christian. For no reason whatsoever. And I instantly knew that I wasn't getting any further, that God had me right there, right then, and there was no other option but to just turn back to him. And I, instantly in my mind said, "All right, God, this is as far as I go." And I answered, "Yes, I am a Christian. I gave my life to God a few years ago." And she instantly started bawling her eyes out and crying and saying that she was been praying for God to put somebody into her life, so that she could, have Christians in her life and to know God more in deeper ways, that she's been praying for this. And it turned into a very emotional moment right when we met. And we went upstairs and talked. We didn't watch the concert. We talked about God the whole time.
And so we got talking, and a few minutes later, out of the blue, for no reason, I just asked him, "Are you a Christian?" And he said, "Yeah." But he kind of gave it a minute and thought about it, and he said, "Yeah." And we ended up talking for 2.5 hours, and I was crying in the State Theater, bawling my eyes out. He told me his story, and I told him mine, and we just were like connecting and just talking about God. And he said, "When you asked me if you were a Christian, that was God saying to me, 'Are you a Christian?'" And when he told me that, I didn't understand it, and now I know, and now I understand it, and now it makes so much sense, because he had been walking away from God.
And she showed me this thing on her iPhone. It was this poem entitled Grace, and it was a poem saying that God wanted me to come back to him. He was waiting with open arms. And then I started crying. And next thing you know, 2 months later, she got baptized.
And I could tell that he was wanting me to know God, because he was like, "I want to introduce you to a bunch of girls who are going to help you study the Bible, and who are going to, they're going to get you baptized." He's like, "I want to see you baptized." And I was like, "Well, I've never heard anybody say that before." but it was cool that somebody was excited and someone was pushing for me. And so we started studying the Bible, and I just started to find out who Jesus was and fall in love with him. And I was baptized on March 6th, and we started dating. And after a while, at the church we were at, both of us felt called to be somewhere else. So we were praying about it, and I was like, had these two options, and Eastpoint was one. So we came for that Sunday, and I remember right before we left, somebody tapped me on my shoulder, and Steve was up doing his thing, and I turned around, and Diane and Larry were there, and she was like, hi, are you new here? And I was like, yeah, well, I'm visiting. I'm kind of in the middle of the whole switching churches thing. I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, I just want to start out by saying that 9 times out of 10, when God speaks, sometimes I'm not obedient, or I don't, I think too long before I obey. But this particular Sunday, when we came into church, we sat down in our normal little place in the worship center, and this young girl came into the row in front of us. The Holy Spirit just spoke to me and said, you need to speak to this young lady when church is done. And so when church was over, I just reached up and tapped her on the shoulder, and not knowing a lot of people from Eastpoint, I just said, are you new at Eastpoint, or do you go to church here, or whatever? And she just told me that this was her first Sunday here, and we just almost had an immediate connection, exchanged phone numbers, and began texting that very day.
She took my number, and her and Larry were so good to me, and they were so nice. And all of a sudden, Diane and I were just like best friends, like texting, and we were buddies. And then I remember I said to Steve the night that I started texting her, I was like, this is my spiritual mom, and I know it. And I just know it. She's like a leader to me, and she's guiding me, and she's showing me, and she's incredible, and I'm so thankful for them.
Recently, me and Kayla ended up baptizing my friend Mike, who has been a friend of mine for 3 years. He disappeared for a little bit after earlier, studies through the Bible and talking about Jesus and this and that. He went on his own path, and he ended up coming back and submitted, and he was ready to give his life to God.
Hi, my name is Mike. I moved to Portland, Maine about 3 years ago, essentially to get sober. I got here, I moved into a sober house. I met Stephen. We became great friends, and actually the funny thing is that he told me, he's like, I'm not even going to take your phone number because I'm never going to see you again. And I'm not trying to be rude, but that's just not going to happen. Only people you stay in contact with is your family, right? So I was like, wow, this guy's crazy. But anyway, through the grace of God, he kept us together for some reason, and I knew there was some reason why, and, we ended up working together and, and doing all these things. And I lost my mother when I was 23 years old. It was the hardest thing I had to deal with in my entire life, and I assumed that if there was a God, then she would still be alive. Once again, that was my outlook then. My new outlook now, after following God and giving my life to God, is that her time on earth here was done, and he needed her for greater things beyond my imagination, and God always uses bad for good, and he actually used this, to strengthen my faith in him, because when I essentially came back, after this whole situation with this relationship, it went bad, and I left, and I actually came back to Stephen, which was, funny, and like I said, he's the one that really put it to me and said, hey, so 3 years ago, you were sitting here, you're trying to follow God, and you were ready to be a Christian and do all these things, and you decided not to and go the other way, and he said, okay, do what you got to do, I'll be here waiting. He's like, so now you're back. He's like, we're starting to look at his word again, and he's asking you, hey, are you ready this time? You're gonna wait, another 3 years, And I was like, wow, that put it in all perspective right there, It was a Wednesday night, I remember, and, and it was decided through prayer that I was ready to be baptized, right? And I was like, this is fired up, I'm ready, let's do this, right? Look, whatever, and I was just so excited, I couldn't even sleep, because I was like, oh, I get to join the kingdom tomorrow, I mean, how many people say they can do that, and be willing and want to do that, Jesus is Lord, and just completely different from 3 years ago. I didn't even believe in God, you know? And so I woke up and I didn't even know it was July 4th. And I was like, oh my goodness, today is Independence Day. What a day to be baptized, right?
Yeah. I would be right there with you.
All right.
I mean, from where I was 3 years ago, you know, trying to get sober, now almost 4 years, God has been doing for me what I can never do for myself, you know, and by the grace of God, I am still sober, you know, and I choose to follow God.
It's been a great journey. And then baptizing Mike, just to be, I never thought that I would be part of those things, because you don't, you know, people think that to baptize somebody you have to have credentials of, I used to think that you have to have some sort of credential, and we were like, he wants it, you know, like he wants God, he wants to know Jesus. And so we were like, well, let's do it. And we woke up and we just went on the 4th of July. I mean, what a great day to be baptized, but and so we did it, and I wouldn't take any of it back.